You're now watching truly unique footage. Russian propagandists are leaking their own troop coordinates right on screen. The Russian occupiers are proudly flexing their oversized cannon and the supposed skills of their artillery crews. This so-called report was meant to glorify the might of Russian weapons and quickly spread across the occupiers' media, racking up thousands of views among Russian Nazis. But as we all know, the battlefield of the Russian-Ukrainian war is not exactly the best place to show off. Pilots of the Mighty Wings unit from Ukraine's 122nd Odesa Brigade quickly located the artillery position and, together with neighboring units, held a hands-on class in counter-propaganda for the Russians.
I love it when they run around in hysterics, try to put out the fire with their hands, and it just burns even harder.
What you're seeing now is a joint special military operation conducted by Mighty Wings and the strike drone group of the 26th Border Detachment of Ukraine's State Border Guard Service. The objective is just the way Putin loves it, the full demilitarization and denazification. But the target is probably not the one Putin would prefer. It's one of his own artillery crews.
Russians are being oppressed.
As you can see, the invaders tried to camouflage their much-hyped cannon, but to borrow the language of Tolstoy, Dostoevsky, and Putin himself, no luck, shit didn't go down.
It was the way to success. No luck, shit didn't go down.
The woodland belt occupied by the Russian invaders was suffering heavy strikes from Ukrainian drones until the operators were 100% sure no living spot was left. Wish you good health. I'm Arsen Cymbaluk, a serviceman of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Today we'll see how powerful but scarce Russian equipment turns into scrap metal thanks to the cunning and skill of the warriors from the 122nd Brigade. Also, we'll hear how the Russian propaganda sounds right on the Ukrainian border.
You are listening to Sputnik Radio.
Finally, we'll witness the intense and exhausting training of Ukrainian fighters before heading into the battle. Please support the 122nd Brigade with a donation through PayPal. The email address is in the description below this video. Also, please support our channel with likes and subscriptions and support our frontline fighters with kind words in your comments. Thank you, and let's go. Here's how Russian artillery coverts strike positions of the Ukrainian defense forces and civilian areas in frontline towns and villages. The criminals hide in the forests tens of kilometers away, drag their relatively long-range weapons there, and fire whenever they can. This time, as you can see, they didn't even bother to hide, firing openly from the forest edge. Well, pilots from the 122nd Brigade definitely won't be watching us from the air and striking us with precision. Apparently, that's exactly what the liberators of the planet, bearers of the great Russian culture and descendants of Pushkin and Dostoevsky thought when they set up the camp on the forest's edge. Imagine their surprise when the so-called Ukrainian sanctions have started to affect their howitzer. The first drone from the Border Guard servicemen explodes less than a meter from the howitzer. The pilots want to be absolutely sure the Russian evil on wheels will never shoot again, so they send a second FPV drone to halt peace talks on the Russian positions. After the second explosion, a large part of the howitzer flies off. A small fire ignites around it, and shells stored under the artillery rig start exploding. All that's missing is, of course, the music. The pilots send a third drone, and the Russian artillery piece starts playing the flute. Can you hear that sound? As you know, our pilots are not only virtuoso conductors of the chorus of Valery Gergiev's Boys, but also scrupulous parking inspectors for the occupiers. The 122nd Brigade's patrols work day and night. Whenever some unclean souls park their vehicles against Ukrainian law, the mighty wings pilots and their brothers-in-arms immediately issue a fine. This time, the occupier not only came to temporarily occupied territory of Ukraine by car, but tried to hide the car too. The war criminal masked the vehicle as best he could, but there was no escape from the punishment. Here's your happy letter, an incendiary mixture delivered by an FPV drone, the best kind of receipt for traffic violators. But the thing is, the occupiers didn't stop there. To my personal surprise, I saw this. Instead of quietly hiding and trying to avoid unmasking their permanent positions, these occupiers rushed to their burning vehicle to save it. Maybe these Russians mastered VPN, watched too many Western forbidden movies like Mad Max or something, and imagined themselves superheroes. Or maybe they're just literally out of their mind. Anyway, their trip in the burning car was anything but Hollywood style. The occupiers suddenly veered off the road into the forest, nearly crashing into trees multiple times. After a long, utterly schizophrenic ride, their vehicle finally stopped in that forest, and apparently for good. A completely senseless episode from the absurd life of the most pointless empire in modern human history. But no matter how nonsensical that empire is, it sadly still exists and still kills our people. Every day and night, the armed forces of Ukraine face the still powerful Russian army, so every day and night our warriors of the 122nd Brigade learn and train. Yesterday's civilians become soldiers, and experienced soldiers become even more skilled fighters. You're watching one of the hardest combat elements, so-called urban warfare. Danger lurks behind every corner and window here, so these exercises are conducted with maximum precision. The instructors are seen training with extra load. Each soldier carries a full backpack with supplies and gear for potentially several days of combat. Both in training and in battle, the 122nd Territorial Defense Brigade Infantry proves they are versatile, resilient, and skilled warriors who fight for every inch of Ukrainian land and do so smartly. Remember, the 122nd Brigade battalions defend Ukraine across many directions, from northern Sumy region to the border with temporarily occupied Transnistria. Recently, there, near the Moldovan border, my comrade and I heard Russian radio.
The reduction of the Bank of Russia's key interest rate will contribute to the continued recovery of the car loan market in Russia in the second half of this year.
What an important piece of news.
Average interest rates on such loans may decrease by 2 to 3 percentage points, according to experts interviewed by the REA Novosti news agency.
The signal was strong, the content utterly disgusting.
Keys of Zakari. Is this Prilipin? Good afternoon. This is Zakhar's Keys show on Radio Sputnik. My name is Zakhar Prilipin.
Yes, that was the infamous terrorist, propagandist and writer Zakhar Prilipin, a criminal since 2014 when he joined Russian separatist forces in Donetsk and Luhansk. Actually, he is the one who almost retired from his job in 2023 in the depths of Russia. He survived severe damages, but his head and tongue still try to work against Ukraine and humanity. No doubt, justice will finally catch up with this creature, but the fact is that in 2025, Russian radio still broadcasts in Odesa Oblast reminds us of the thing. Russia hasn't given up its plans to seize Ukrainian strategic region of Odessa, and possibly Mykolaiv and Kherson again, while intensifying its dirty work in this direction. Let me remind you of the statement of Russian General Minikaev, former deputy commander of the Central Military District of Russia, whose declaration about Russia's goals was heard worldwide in April 2022.
One of the objectives of the Russian army is to establish full control over the Donbas in southern Ukraine. This would make it possible to secure a land corridor to Crimea and exert pressure on key facilities of the Ukrainian armed forces, as well as Black Sea ports. Control over southern Ukraine would also provide another route to Transnistria, where there have also been reports of discrimination against the Russian-speaking population.
Now, remember the so-called Gerasimov's map, accidentally or deliberately shown during a recent speech made by Russia's chief of staff. The map was depicting Odessa, Mykolaiv and Kherson regions as cut off from the rest of Ukraine. That's how Russia sees the new borders of Ukraine, and that's exactly how the propaganda poisoning the minds of our people sounds.
Today we will be talking about two remarkable poets, both of whom are connected to music in one way or another, and both are linked to the Great Patriotic War.
Now, tell me honestly, isn't it all connected? Pushkin and Putin, Tolstoy and Gerasimov, Dostoevsky and Medvedev. Isn't it time to let go of the illusions about the so-called Great Russian culture that supposedly has nothing to do with the war and stands so far above politics? The so-called culture has probably been their most powerful weapon ever. We'll talk more about this in upcoming episodes, but for now I kindly ask you to support us with a donation via this QR code or through the PayPal email address in the description. And please support us also on the info front with likes and subscriptions to our channel. See you soon. Take care of yourselves. Take care of Ukraine. Slava Ukraini!